Right, good evening. We're going to get the webinar started this evening. Hope I'm coming through nice and loud and clear. Wanted to welcome you to our webinar this evening, educational webinar on best locations for investment properties and tax tips for the end of the financial year. So great to have you with us. We promise to try and keep you well educated and well entertained for this next hour. There are bars at the bottom which enables you to do Q&A. So we do encourage lots of Q&A during the night. So put your questions up there. I'll be trying to monitor from time to time, but there should be a bar where you can put some Q&A there. Wanted to give a warm welcome tonight to our guest speakers. They're just going to unmute and say hello. First presenter tonight after me will be Patrick Thatcher. Good evening, Patrick.
Sorry, technical error. Good evening, Garth. Good evening, listeners. I'm very, very excited about sharing some tax tips with you tonight.
And you're having a little bit of rain there in Perth, a little bit of rain today?
Yeah, that's why I've stayed indoors and worked on tax instead of anything else.
That's excellent, Patrick. Thanks. We look forward to speaking and hearing from you shortly.
No problem.
Then we will go to one of our VIP clients, Punit Fernandez from Melbourne. Good evening, Punit. How's things? How's your weather there in Melbourne?
Hey, Garth. Good evening. Delighted to be here. Hello, everyone. It's a bit wet and chilly over here in Melbourne, unlike in Perth.
Yeah. No, that's good. Well, we're looking forward to hearing from you this evening also. Thank you. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure. And then we'll have Jamie Horner, who will be our property management expert, telling us what's happening in the market. Good evening, Jamie. How are you been?
Good evening, Garth. Good, thank you. Hello, Patrick and Punit and everyone else that's on tonight.
Cool beans. All right. Well, thanks, guys. So if you're okay to mute and just take your videos off, and we will get cracking. All right. Let's get cracking with the webinar. And as always, sometimes a little bit of a technical hitch. There we go. She's got started. So nothing but a bit of fun and games won't get in the way. But yeah, just a disclaimer for this evening. As always, it's educational night. It's just general information. So please seek your own specialist advice from your expert advisors. All right. Just for those who may be new, what does Property Powerhouse do? By providing education, support, and experience, we have a lot of that. Property Powerhouse enables mum and dad investors to buy quality properties all around Australia, enabling them to retire with multiple passive rental income streams, ensuring them a financially free lifestyle in retirement, which is so important. It's no good working hard all your life and we don't have anything to show for it. All right. Why use Property Powerhouse? Just sort of put it down to a couple of bullet points here. We help you find the best investment properties Australia-wide. So we have an Australian-wide footprint. Our researchers are throughout the country, which is very good and very important. Number two, we work at no cost to the buyer ever. So we work for you as the buyer, and you don't pay us any fees, whether it's upfront, during the purchase, or after settlement. The third thing, also fixed price contracts, which gives you peace of mind. For those of you that have been looking to buy properties in the hot property markets, which we'll discuss tonight, you know it's an absolute shambles. You're seeing properties priced from so-and-so. You go to the home opens and the property ends up selling for 50, 100, 150K more than what it was listed for. So that's not a good thing. When you've got a fixed purchasing capacity, you need peace of mind that the contract price is the contract price, and the price that you're looking at that property is the price you're going to get. And our excellent long-term support and assistance. So we don't just give you the property and send you on your way and say, phone us when you want to sell it. Not at all. We're there to help you we help you with everything. We're going to help you with the property management. We'll help you with the settlement of the property. We'll help you with the building insurance, landlord's insurance. We'll help you with the depreciation schedules. We'll help you, a year, 5, 10 years later when you've got the property. And that's important. Otherwise, you're very much on your own. So we think what we do is fantastic. And we'll be hearing from Punit a little bit later. He's experienced some of our services and experienced the ride with Property Powerhouse. Right, I thought this would be interesting. Just going to move that screen up my way. saw this chart literally come up yesterday, and I thought this was really interesting. Okay, so this is median property prices as they sit today, and we'll see this graph a little bit later. Not unexpected. We'll see Sydney at the top of that. But what I'd like us to do is have a look at those, and then you're going to see in my next slide, which I'll drop down, guess what the median house price was in 1975. So it's 49 years ago, but we'll call it 50 years ago. So I don't know if anyone would like to put a comment in the chats, but I would like you to have a look. Whoops. Probably just giving it away there. But Sydney prices, you can see as of today, the median dwelling price, 1.1 million. I would like you, please, this is a little test. You go to the chat box and let's see some chats in there. What do you think the median price or property price was 50 years ago in Sydney? Anyone going to have a go? Let's have a look what's coming in. Jamie's come in with a number. Let's see who else. Come on, guys. You've got to be. This is. I want you to participate. We've got someone here also. So we've got. Chat is disabled. All right. That's fine, Russ. Let's put it under Q&A then. Put it under Q&A, and we can read it there. So we've had some answers so far, and the rest of you don't want to participate. Please put it under Q&A, and we can have a looky there. All right. Well, some of you are close. Let's have a look. And let's just see some more coming in. 30K for Perth was Russ. Ellie is saying 25K for Sydney. Central is saying 28. There we go. You guys are getting in the swing of it now. Leone, 50K. Any more want to play the game and just see how property is performing? Right. Let's go to, I'll just take that slide down. So, there we go. Try and roll it one side. Okay. 49 years ago, what were they? Go there. So there's Sydney, 28,000. So we did have someone on there. But the purpose of the exercise is to just show you what happens with compounding over time. And you can see, even at that point in time, like we feel the property prices are high in each of our capital cities now. But at this time in 1975, people would have really been battling to pay that. A lot of their salaries, disposable incomes would be going towards paying off mortgages on these properties. But I mean, that's amazing, right? What's happened in a 49-year period. And yes, there would have been a few bumps along the way, but generally, as we know, property prices, the trend is to go up, and a nice low risk investment in bricks and mortar. And property sustains its value, residential property particularly sustains its value through all those sort of shakes and challenges, whether it's health scares like we had with COVID, when there's financial stress or there's wars going on. Property is, people come back to bricks and mortar for safety. Right, let's see if we can get up to the next slide. Right, let's have a little bit of a market update. So just transferring those figures in another format here. So this is what we get from CoreLogic on the last day of every month. So this was actually for the end of last month. One of these will be coming out tomorrow from CoreLogic, and I don't expect it to show a very dissimilar picture. I think the picture will be very similar here. Now, tonight's topic was talking about the markets that are really performing well. And what I love about this, firstly, on the right-hand side, there's those numbers that we saw earlier, the property values as of today, median values. So if there's 100 sales made in Sydney, that'll be the middle of the range. So it's not thrown off by particularly high or particularly low sales that month. What it tells us here is the monthly changes. So obviously anything that's positive like this, the median prices have gone up for properties sold. The quarter gives us a much better example of what's been happening over a period of time, because in 1 month may have been affected by certain things, but the quarter and the annual are good guides. Sometimes the annual is a little bit too old and is not sort of relative to what's happening today, but it will show us the trends. The 3 cities that we've highlighted here are the 3 standouts, and they have been so for the last 12 months. Perth, I want to show you here, you'll see at this last month performed at 2%. That is amazing that it's doing that. And what's interesting with this also is that it's actually appreciating, it's accelerating. So 3 months ago, 2 months ago, it was 1.8. Now it's gone to 1.9 that month, and now it's gone to 2% in the last month. So the rate of growth is increasing. You can see over a quarter, 6%. So you multiply that by 4 and you've got 24% sort of So that we're on track in Perth for about a 24% growth in 1 year. Now, that's not going to be sustainable forever, but for anyone who's looking in the Perth market at the moment, we know, how difficult it is. And what's driving that? Absolute shortage of properties, shortage of stock, very strong demand coming from local buyers, owner-occupiers, local investors, and in Perth at the moment, a lot of interstate investors coming in, cash offers, and outbidding the local people. And we'll show an example a bit later about the massive numbers that are going at home opens and going to see properties, putting in bids and missing out. The Brisbane market and Adelaide market, also particularly strong markets, also because they've been driven off sort of relative affordability, as we said earlier. Even in those prices we saw in 49 years ago, they would have felt they were expensive at the time. We're looking at these prices in the right-hand column thinking these are expensive. But when we look back in 5 and 10 years' time, we're going to think, wow, how affordable they are. I know that's scary to think, but it will be the case. And again, we can see Adelaide relatively affordable, Brisbane relatively affordable. These three cities are the standouts. They are lacking in stock. They have very strong migration. Brisbane, they're going for lifestyle from the southern states. No stock there. And we're not even talking about the rental situation now. We're just talking about the actual value. And so three standout cities there. As we can see, all of them last month went positive. Only Melbourne was sort of stabilizing, the last quarter stabilizing, and the annual hasn't been that good. But this is normal. The capital cities work in cycles, so they won't all be shooting the lights out. You can see this is Perth time in the sun, but it doesn't go like that for always. And then Perth will have a time where it also flattens out. And these property prices, generally the trend line is up, but there are times when long periods of time, sometimes where properties are stagnant, and sometimes even when property values dip, as we see what happened to Melbourne there. So look, that's really important to see the three standouts. Those three cities is where our focus is, helping investors. Difficult to get stock, but that's our problem at Property Powerhouse. Difficult to find properties, and if there were lots of properties, it wouldn't be performing like this. So there's some reasons for why it's performing so strongly. We'll go to the next slide. Again, same data, just put it in a graph and a bar chart form for you. Just want to show. So green is the Perth, that's for last month. So these again are from CoreLogic monthly results. It just makes it sort of see it from a different angle. Brisbane and Adelaide. So Perth best performing last month, Adelaide, Brisbane. Let's go next slide down. Okay, there we go. In the quarter, so again Perth, like we saw on that table, but here we can see in the bar chart. So those three cities, again, shooting the lights out. We go to the next one there, and that's the annual. And you can see again that those three capital cities performing the best. And we don't see that changing in the short term. Perth, there's probably at least conservatively another sort of 18 months of strong appreciation. Some really respected commentators, Damien Collins, ex-Rawa president, talking that, potentially in the next 3 to 4 years, there could be further 40% growth in there. So no one has the crystal ball, but Brisbane has the 2032 Olympics, and that has a lot of winds with it. It's got a lot of tailwinds that will keep that market really safe and secure because of the Olympics and all the infrastructure. And Adelaide, again, a lot of people moving there just for lifestyle and for affordability. Go to the next one. This is something I wanted to show you. This is in the West Australian newspaper from Saturday. This is just an example of what's happening in the Perth market. So this property here is in Mullaloo, which is probably about 20 kilometers north of the Perth CBD. It's a coastal suburb. This property isn't actually on the coast. It's a couple of roads back. That had a home open over 2 days. They had 500 people attending. The house doesn't, the plumbing is not, it's an older house, as you can see. The plumbing is gone, and toilets don't flush. Carpet's got weevils. This is strictly probably for a knockdown and rebuild. That's the land value. But 500 people going across 2 home opens. So that is 250 people at a home open. Now, and that was in the paper. It was just showing, and that's $1 million property. It's not a property at 400,000 where you've got all your first home buyers. crazy market at the moment, and just again, massive demand. You can see from the 500 people, but also just the lack of properties. Right, I'm going to try and move the page down. Let me see. Okay, behaving really well. A market that we haven't mentioned tonight, but I want you to keep your eye on. And there may be some opportunities now, a few boutique opportunities, but probably coming at some stage. And the reason, again, that market is Melbourne. That was the one that showed negative growth for the last month. Negative growth for last month. So what we're looking at also is trends and buying opportunities. Right, so it's been flat the last quarter. What we see happening there, and this is what excites me as an investor potentially for Melbourne, maybe there's a couple of opportunities now, but the real opportunities may happen sort of 6 to 12 months. They've had a government there that have made it really difficult for investors and property owners, and they've made it almost a place that they're chasing property investors away from. They've changed their land tax. So on your own home, you don't pay any land tax on your own home. If you have an investment property, you pay the land equivalent, you pay a tax on what the land is. Now, thresholds around the country are normally around maybe $300,000 of land value. So you normally can get away with one investment property without paying any land tax. Maybe your second or third, you've got to pay some land tax. And what's happened is they've dropped it to a really, really low level in Victoria. It's a bit of a money grab. They're out of cash, so they thought, okay, let's drop the land tax threshold. So basically every investment property now in Victoria, you pay land tax. If you have multiple properties, then you're paying a heap. What's happened also is they've had a lot of changes to their Residential Tenancies Act, where they've put a lot of really looked after tenants, but at the detriment of landlords or property investors. So it's been a one-way street. It's been, all for the tenants and very little for the property investors. As a result, what's happened is investors have started saying, too hard in Melbourne, we're selling out. And as you can see here, in the last 3 months, 5,000 rental properties have exited the market. So when they're selling, they're being bought up by owner-occupiers. And so that, over a year, it's looking at 20,000 rental properties. And that's probably going to happen for a couple of years. But we see that as an opportunity, because as rental properties leave the market, so what happens, there's less supply, you've still got the same amount of people renting, and there's less properties to rent. And that's probably why we hadn't been that keen on Melbourne, because the rental yield, rent per value dollar that you're spending, wasn't that crash hot compared to Perth, Brisbane, and Adelaide. But that will start to change as investors leave the market and there's less rental properties. What's going to happen is that rents are going to start going up, and their prices are quite affordable there in Melbourne. So I think keep your eye on that one. There should be some good opportunities in the next sort of 12 months, 2 years, 2 years to 3 years. So we're watching that market, and we're researching there as we are all around the country. But at the moment, Perth, Brisbane, Adelaide are the standouts, with Melbourne going to make its way up there at some point, not too far off. Right, let's go to the next slide. These are the gross yields. So again, this is the rental yields. Darwin has a lot of apartments there, so they're a little bit skewed. They get a good return. The higher the number, the better the return. Perth at about 4.5. That's an interesting number, because for our investors, we're getting close to 6%. So again, Property Pass is doing better than the average. We're getting about 6% there. Brisbane, we're getting about close to 5%, and Adelaide around about 4.8%. So we at Property Pass are outperforming the market. But what it shows you again is that the rental yields out of Sydney and Melbourne are not strong. So what it means is there will be quite a lot of negative cash flow buying a property in Sydney and Melbourne. And obviously I'm speaking generically, and you tend to get much better rental yields out of Perth, Adelaide, and Brisbane. As I say, Darwin's a bit of an exception because it has a lot of apartments. Right, my next slide. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to hurry up quickly. Just this came out in today's news. There's been a bit of bashing over the head in the Australian Financial Review regarding finance brokers and mortgage brokers, and they hit back really good today. I've been watching in the media. So I'm a great fan of finance broker, mortgage broker. They're the same thing. Mortgage broker gets the home loans. Finance brokers are normally mortgage brokers, but they can do car finance and personal loans. But interestingly, 74% of all new home loans now are being written by a finance broker stroke mortgage broker. So, you know, the difference, the balance is going directly to the bank, but the bank working directly with the public, those numbers are reducing all the time, and brokers are getting more and more off the market, and it's creating competition. So they work and represent about 40 different banks. By law, they have to get the best deal that they can for the mum and dad borrower, and they're doing a fantastic job. So if we have any finance broker, mortgage brokers listening in tonight, which I know there's a few, you guys do a fantastic job, and keep creating the competition. You're working for the client, and the banks are working for their shareholders. All right, I'm probably just going to rush through here because I'm running behind. Just that's again the interest rates. The Reserve Bank set again next month on the 18th of June, and it's looking like the only rate deductions will be coming towards maybe in December and or potentially in February. So inflation a little bit high still. Thank you to these figures from Mark Kruger of House and Home Loans, just showing very little people signing up at the moment. Only 1.4% of borrowers on new loans are taking out fixed loans. Most people are expecting rates to come down compared to, as you can see, during the time of COVID, where 46% of all loans were getting fixed. So yeah, very few people doing fixed loans at the moment. Right, go to the next slide. Just quickly, you know, the governments are really good, and this is not to bash the governments, but they like to blame investors. Greedy property investors are driving up the prices. They blame migrants. Too many migrants are coming, they're pushing up prices. Then who did they turn on? They turn on the international students. It's all the international students' fault. It's not their fault. Well, this was a really good article out of the Brisbane Courier Mail, and it's basically saying 1/3 of all the costs of a home is going back in taxes, stamp duties, GST, and I find it a fascinating article that the governments are pointing the fingers at everybody else while, why property prices are high. The taking about 30%, 33% cost of property you buy has gone to government taxes. Stamp duty, they love it. It's the laziest tax they've ever been. And every time a property sells, they just put their hand out and make a fortune at a state level. So yeah, it's not the migrants, it's not the students, and it's not the property investors either. All right, that's enough from me. I would like to now introduce Patrick Thatcher. So Patrick, if you wanted to just, yeah, you're coming through there, that's good. Patrick Thatcher, good to have you, Patrick. He is the director of Thatcher Consulting. Patrick is an experienced business and specialist taxation advisor, focusing on the small business market, particularly private clients and high net worth groups. His 20+ years experience in the industry, both as a business owner and as a senior tax advisor, has shown the passion he has for assisting his clients to grow and maximize their wealth. His main purpose is to provide his clients with certainty in an uncertain world. He has offices in Perth, Kalgoorlie, but he assists clients Australia-wide. Good evening, Patrick.
Good evening, Garth. Well, with an intro like that, I don't know where I can go. Thank you. Appreciate it. Look, whilst and good evening to all listeners. Whilst Garth has been talking about the property market and what it's doing, the value that's being delivered by the market, the scarcity of properties and all the rest of it, I'm going to try and put a lighter spin on that and talk to you about the tax component of properties. Now, we all know that when you buy a rental property, it comes with some tax advantages, and depending on what properties you buy, the tax advantages can be high or moderate. So what I thought we'd do is to start off with talking about new versus established properties. So when you enter a property market, you have the choice sometimes of whether to purchase a brand new property or stand in line and look at some established properties, which, as Garth has shown and mentioned, there's hundreds of people lining up wanting to buy the same property as you. So what you need to be aware of is that properties, new properties versus old properties, there are advantages and also, some disadvantages. And hopefully tonight I can give you my view on what I think the advantages versus the disadvantages between the new properties and the established properties. So for new properties, when you are buying new, you are buying an asset value with a growth potential. You are also buying a high depreciation deduction. So for those that understand the concept of depreciation, a property carries values, asset values in the building and in the fixtures and fittings, which the ATO graciously allows you to claim a deduction over the life of that asset. So obviously, if you purchase a property that's brand new, the value of the asset is a lot higher, and therefore your deductions are a lot higher as well, through depreciation, of course. A new property has tenant appeal. So if it's new, it's got every new fixtures, it's in a good location, you will find it a lot easier to rent it out. Although these days, it doesn't matter where the property is located. The property will rent if it's got a cardboard roof on it. It also, with new properties, you have government incentives which can be available. Old properties or essentially established properties, potentially you have no limit on as to locations. So newly properties are built in certain areas, certain developed areas, whereas established properties, as long as your budget allows you to, you can pretty much go into different suburbs and different locations and have access to established properties that are up for sale. An old property may not be as valuable as a brand new one. However, you can manufacture growth through renovation. So if you buy a very old, like that property that Garth has shown us in Mullaidoo here in Perth, carpets gone, pub plumbing gone, roof gone, and all the rest of it, you can renovate it, but it's going to cost you money, which could be tax deductible, but it will cost you money to get it up to the standard and bring value into the property. Usually, those established properties are in a lower market and they could be bargains. So if we can go to the next slide, Garth.
Yeah, coming now.
Yep. So the next slide talks about the disadvantages, which I call the cons, obviously. For new properties, it really depends if you're buying from a developer, a pre-built home, then you probably won't have this issue. But if you buy off the plan, you could be paying a premium price for the purchase of that property. And if there is a market downturn, and I realized when I read these notes, which I prepared a long time ago, the market downturn is pretty inexistent these days. All we're looking at is just spiking up growth. But in a real market, in a normal market, you could potentially buy a new property in an area that's been overvalued, and you're stuck with a property that has a value that you've paid at a very high price. And you lose off that property when you try and sell it further down the track. The banks are also wary on lending criteria. So when you're buying off the plan, the bank wants more money from you than at the outset. So the expectations that buyers will have when they're buying off the plan is sometimes not delivered by the builder. There's always discrepancies. There's always things that are different. So if you're buying a brand new property off the plan, make sure that you look at the contract. Established properties, not so many of those problems. The main problems that you will have with an established property or an old property are the structural problems. These could be costly. If you choose location over quality, you may have to invest money in that property to renovate, to bring the value back up. And that could be a time and cost factor as well. So because as we all know, trades are very scarce these days. If you sometimes you've got to wait months to get a plumber or a roof tiler or a builder. So that could be an issue. But the biggest disadvantage of buying an old property is the lower cost that you can have in depreciating your assets. And if we go to the next slide, I want to talk about what is the tax angle of owning an investment property. Now, we all know about negative gearing. Negative gearing has been in the Australian tax system for many, many decades. And governments have tried to stop it, to put an end to it, but it's been reversed, and it's not going away any soon, as far as I'm concerned. But is it for you? Is negative gearing for me or not? If we go to the next slide. So you need to have an understanding of what negative gearing is. So in its pure form, negative gearing is a type of financial leverage. So you're borrowing funds to buy an income producing asset, which becomes a tax deduction. So it becomes a tax deduction when the costs that you incur holding the asset exceeds the income that's generated by that asset. And by that income, I mean the rent generated by that asset. So when your expenses exceed your income, that creates a loss, and that loss is used to offset your other income and therefore produces a refund. Let's go to the next slide. So what do you need to know about negative gearing? Basically, you use negative gearing to subsidize your asset. So you never use negative gearing to make a profit, because let me clear this out. If you spend $1 on the property, you will only get back 30 cents in that dollar. Okay, so you're only going to get back what your tax rate allows you to get back. So the tax benefit through negative gearing is the main purpose of that is to lower your tax bill, and the refunds that the negative gearing delivers will assist you in meeting your property running costs. But you need to be able to maximize those tax deductions to make the most of negative gearing. And as far as I'm concerned, my best long-term strategy in property investing is to actually make the property positive. Because whilst I said to you before, you spend $1 and you only get a 30 cents back. So I'm not sure if anyone wants to be in an investment that creates losses right the way through. So let's go to the next one. Next one.
Sorry, mate, coming up.
So as far as deductions, to create negative gearing, you need to be aware of all the tax deductions that are available to you as a property investor. So this is a list. It's not an exhausting list. It's a very small list, but there's other items that a tax specialist can actually talk to you about. But for question of time today, I can only give you this list. And if you want to know more about it, you can always contact me, and I can certainly go through and spend a one-on-one time with you to give you more of an angle of what you can actually claim. So rates and taxes, insurances, repairs and maintenance, you've got to make sure that your repairs and maintenance are general repairs, because if they are structural repairs and asset repairs, those costs will be depreciated as opposed to written off fully. So the depreciation is what we've talked about before. The depreciation is taking the value of the asset and claiming a portion, a percentage of it every year over the life of the asset. The accountant's fees, of course, is deductible. Advertising costs for advertising for tenants, if you are the property manager yourself. Strata fees, a very big cost that you need to consider. And sometimes those strata fees can have hidden components in there. You need to be able to differentiate between ongoing strata costs and provisional strata costs. Provisional strata costs are costs that are taken from the property owner, but not deductible in the year that it's been paid, because it's a provision that's put aside for future expenses. So there's a difference there that you need to be aware of. Land tax and, of course, interest. Interest is your biggest cost. So yeah, no, we can go to the next one, Garth. So my end of year tax tips: maximize every deduction that you can claim. Make sure that you do not delay the payment of your property expenses, and make sure they're paid before 30th of June, because timing is everything. If you pay it after the 30th of June, you cannot claim it in that year. You've got to take it over to the following year. You can try and defer rental income, but if you're on a tight budget, your tight cash flow, that might not be working for you. So yes, it's a tip, but it's not something that I would recommend. You make sure that all your receipts are gathered, your rental schedules are ready, and make an appointment to see your accountant as soon as you can, so you can actually lodge your tax return and receive your tax refunds faster. And lastly, make sure you have a good accountant. There are many accountants out there that say that they understand property taxation, but have not really been in the game long enough to understand what they can and can't claim. And the reason I say this, the next slide will explain that. The ATO has definitely rental property investors in their line of fire. So this is a very, it's a grim tip, but it's a very good one. You need to be aware of that. So the ATO has spent and invested a lot of money in putting some auditors out there in the field to monitor the claims that are being made on specifically investment properties. And they've highlighted 3 of the main areas that they are going to focus on this year. So making sure that you report correct rental income, and this is more so for the Airbnb rental income. A lot of people decide to not report certain income that they received. Well, the ATO has the use of data matching techniques these days to cross-check incomes with the tax returns. They have access to multiple platforms that will actually tell them what every rental property owner has received during the year. So it is in your benefit to properly declare what you actually earned in rent, but make sure also that you claim the correct deductions. Don't skimp on it, but don't exaggerate on your deductions. So the repairs and maintenance is what I've spoken about before. This is an area where there's a lot of mistakes made, and the ATO has said that they are going to crack down on that. So when you buy new hot water systems, stoves, air conditioning units, and so on, this is classified as a capital expenditure and cannot be claimed outright. It has to be depreciated over a period of time. Whereas if you repair a fence, or you repaint a room which makes the property unrentable, that is classified as a general repair, and the cost that you incur there can be fully claimed. Loan interest, you've got to make sure that only the interest on the loan portion of that property is claimed. So for instance, if you've paid down the loan of a property up to a certain point, but you decide to re-borrow on that property, and you use that loan for private purposes or for other non-rental, non-investment purpose, that portion of that loan is not claimable. So you've got to be very careful, be very upfront with your accountant, and tell them exactly why the loan has increased. And if it's related to that property for renovation or for other types of investment purposes on that property, then you can still claim it. The apportionment of expenses, you've got to make sure as well that you're not over-claiming on a property. So if part of your property only is rented out, and you also live in some of that part of that property, you've got to be very careful that you apportion all of your expenses based on the rented proportion of that property. So those are the three main areas that the ATO have said they're going to crack down. If you're buying a brand new property and you're putting in a tenant full-time for the year, and you're claiming the full depreciation that's produced by a quantity surveyor, I don't think any of those threats are yours, but I'm just putting it out there just in case some of you do have those quirky properties. So yeah, that's me. If there are any questions, Garth, I'll hand it over to you.
Brilliant. Patrick, that was wonderful. Great information as always. And it's amazing how you make accounting sound interesting and good fun. So well done, mate. And I think you're brilliant at what you do. Guys, I will also share all the details for Patrick after we are recording this this webinar. If she's behaving, I think we've got it recorded. And we'll be seeing that information out. For the purposes of time, I'm going to hold questions to the end. So just write down your question if you wanted to speak to Patrick, or Patrick, a question for Patrick, and we'll go from there. So thank you, Patrick. If you just want to mute, we'll get you to answer at the back end. And now I'd like Punit Fernandes to just come off mute and unmute himself, please, Punit. I wanted to introduce Punit this evening. He is one of our VIP clients based in Melbourne, and we've had a really successful relationship together. He was introduced by a finance broker referral partner, and we just wanted to find out a little bit about your journey, Punit. So good evening again, and tell us a little bit about your journey and how you enjoyed the services of Property Powerhouse.
Good evening, Garth, and thank you so much for having me on this panel. So far, the journey has been amazing with Property Powerhouse. I just want to quickly give a quick overview of my experience with Property Powerhouse. I was introduced to Property Powerhouse through one of my mortgage broker back in 2021. And I was initially at the start, I was a bit skeptical that, the company is based in Perth, I'm based in Melbourne, we didn't have any face-to-face conversation. We were in lockdown here in Melbourne. But look, I just went with my gut feeling, and here we are today after 5 years of a very healthy and fruitful relationship. So just to give you a quick overview, I bought a property of Garth in Brisbane, which is doing absolutely amazing. And back in 2020, actually last year, I've got another property through one of my friend. So just to start with, when I bought the property with Garth, the process was very seamless. Garth was with me at every stage, every moment, whatever was required, whether it's with any paperwork or any phone call, he was always on the phone with me, giving me update on the property. It was hassle-free, and the property settled very well. The handover was very smooth, everything without even realizing that, what goes in the back end. And for me, being a new in the market and being a new investor, I assume that this is how it works. And then in second scenario, when I went to do everything by myself, I just found out that, oh my God, I'm getting a call from a landscaper, I'm getting a call from a fencing guy, I'm getting a call from a builder, and so on and so forth. And then, I'm just don't know what to do, and then there was one stage I actually forgot to book a building inspector to go and inspect the property. And the process was so much of hassle, going around chasing this, chasing that. And finally property was settled, and there was a landscaper, he did a bit of bad job, and then I have to chase him up. And there was a fencing guy, the fence was not in proper, so I have to chase him. And then at that moment I realized, I actually remembered Garth going out of his way and doing all this hassle for me. So next time I'm going to go without a fail, I'm going to go with property powerhouse, because they are my go-to people. Garth has always been there for support till today. Any doubt, any question I have, Garth has been phenomenal for me.
That's lovely, and we take your comments wonderfully, and we're very humbled by that. Your experience with Property Powers and your experience trying to do it on your own, friend that owned the land and was trying to do the build. So yeah, we just want for our clients to have a really smooth process, have a good journey, and get a really good investment. And your property in Brisbane has probably gone up. I think you bought it 477. You've probably now made about 250,000 on it within the last couple of years. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely, Garth. Absolutely. Last valuation came out was around 690.
Brilliant. And your rents, how are your rents performing? Are you having any vacancies? Are the rents stagnating, or what's happening there?
I mean, just to give you a quick overview on that, I had this agent recommended to me by Garth. Just to give you an exact idea, the property was settled at 9:30. 10 o'clock, probably the ad went out on real estate, and 1 o'clock, I got a phone call that property has been leased. I've never ever seen some properties going out so quick.
That's wonderful. And Punit, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. We're very humbled by you, by your input tonight, and you sharing your story, and we look forward to building this portfolio of properties with you. So thank you. And I'm going to move to the next presenter, who is Jamie Horner. So thank you, Punit. If you can just turn your video off and your microphone. Thank you. And Jamie's going to join us. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Garth.
I'm going to get... Yep, good to have you. I'm just going to give you a little intro here. So guys, very warm welcome to Jamie Horner, the Director of Empire Property Management here in Perth. She says, how do you become a long-term successful investor that is ready for a life of relaxation? Well, it sounds good to me. And she says it's all about your team. That's correct. Jamie has helped more than 1,500 property owners for more than 20 years, acquiring, building, and holding their own property empire through investor-focused property and strata management strategies. With a master's in property, a Bachelor of Commerce, and diploma in property management, Jamie holds a wealth of knowledge and manages the Real Estate Institute of Western Australia Property Management Team of the Year at Empire. So you're award winners, and are you the current leaders of that?
We're not the current, no, sorry. It was a couple of years ago, Garth, though, but I'm still going to hold on to it.
And I think you're still getting nominated, so you're doing a fantastic job. And
Yeah.
I'm going to throw it over to you now, Jamie. I'm sorry.
Thank you. And I'm mindful of time, so I am going to go quite quickly. But just thank you, Garth, for the lovely intro. When I looked at the prices that you talked about during those 80s and 90s, the reason I am in property is because my parents bought property during that time. However, before they realized most of those gains, they sold because of the property management. So hence why I'm here. I don't think anyone steps out and says, I probably want to be a property manager when I grow up, but I look at all the opportunities my parents had, and I do feel like it was the property management headache and the lack of support in choosing the property, making sure it was well managed. That was the reason why they sold up. So Garth, if I can get you to the next slide, I'm going to go nice and quick so we've got room for questions. In relation to rental price and medium days, a lovely source, which is REWA, the Real Estate Institute of WA. If you look at here, May 2024, and what you can clearly see is whether it's units, which is purple, or whether it is houses in blue, the trend line is up. And it has actually been up since 2020. To tell you the truth, we were probably due to go up around 2019-20. However, COVID came in, we had an act that sort of delayed a lot of increase, and that's why you saw a really large lift between 2020 and 2021. But even right now, up until 2024, you can see the prices are on the increase. So next slide, Garth. Okay, so a little bit of history. If you had an investment property to 2013 to 2017, it wasn't great. Vacancy rate was about 7.7, which you'll see that there's 13,000 there. So that's way too many. A really, really nice market is when we have 6,000 or 7,000. So, excuse my computer beeping at me. And I also think that my internet is coming up as a bit unstable. Lovely, where I live. Okay, so let's look right at the bottom. So even though the number of available rentals has gone up to 2,414, which is a very, very small amount, the vacancy rate is 0.5%. And a lot of people say to me, but how can the number of rentals go up and the vacancy rate go down? It's because our total pool has also diminished. Garth talked about Melbourne losing a large number of rentals. Perth lost about 22,000 rentals in the last 3 years. So even though that amount has gone up, it's still a very, very low percentage of the available pool. So we are now looking at a medium house rent of 650 and a medium rent apartment of 600. Still quite affordable compared to other states. Now, we currently need 9,000 to 11,000 additional properties to clear and get that vacancy rate up. So Garth, next slide, please. So we come and we decide that we're either going to buy or rent. Now, the problem is that usually when one market is not performing or is extremely tight, like renting, we then say, well, you know what? I'm going to go buy. Well, if you look at the sales price and median days of selling, both markets are red hot. There is an absolute lack of supply of listings. So if you can see in 2018, we had about 12,000 listings. A really, really nice listings number is about that 10, 12,000, and then look at that dip. That's the number of sale properties available. So it's both markets. It's not like you can come here and say, oh, look, you know what? Renting is red hot. I'm going to go to the sales market. The sales market is absolutely hot as well and undersupplied. Multiple offers similar to the rental market, and a very, look at that. You know, you have to almost make a property, a decision on a property within about 13 days. And then it's gone. So next slide, please, Garth. So as you can see, I love economics. You can tell I love my business degree. So it all comes down to supply and demand. And even though that picture is nice and balanced, it is not how it is. Supply is down and demand is up. The biggest stat I can probably tell you is that we are the fastest growing capital city. So in the last 7 months was the first time we had net positive interstate and international migration, which means there's now more than 2.3 million people calling WA home. And that's a very big 3.6% jump. If I put it in real terms, it's 1,800 people per week coming into Perth over the last 12 months. Now, the other item I want to highlight is okay, we know demand is red hot. We know people are coming here, and we do need people to come here because unfortunately we have no one to meet job criteria. So we need to let people migrate in because we need to build our houses. We still need workers. We still need all of that. But the problem is that we're also on the lowest building approvals. So the supply market is not coming there. So as you can see at the top, it does say that it is a river of gold for investors. So let's talk about what it's going to look like though for the next 2-3 years and longer, because I do think you do hold property for the long term. So Garth, next slide, please. Okay, so from 2024 to 2027, we will still have a shortfall of 28,200 new properties. Now, remember, that's a shortfall already that we will so we already have a shortfall of 14,000. That shortfall is only going to increase. We have the lowest amount of building approvals in 43 years, and it's not getting any better. We're expected to grow to 3.5 million by 2036. So I said 2.3 million, 3.5. That is another 55,400 people per year till 2036. We have an extreme labour shortage. So it's the first time on record that WA has almost 1.5 jobs for every unemployed person. So we always say, don't bring people in, don't bring people in. But we also love our coffee. We're the largest expender when it comes to hospitality and entertainment as well. Everyone else in the country went backwards on, they tightened their purse strings. We're quite the opposite in WA. We love our coffees, our entertainment, and our food. But we also need people to serve us. So we've got a problem that we also have an extreme labour shortage, and that we also have net overseas migration and interstate. So this is not just the Asian countries to the left, because we are such an isolated city. It's interstate migration, because 650 per week isn't that bad if you're in some of those other states. I've already said WA building approvals at a historic low. So Garth, next slide. Actually, Garth, can we go back a sec? Now, other than my internet connection being very dodgy because it is raining at the moment at home, the reason why we love Perth is that we are the sunniest place, right? So isolation used to be a problem, but since COVID, everyone loves isolation. It's why regional markets also have this same problem. It's because COVID made us realize that we sometimes wanted to be isolated. We wanted to be locked down. We wanted to go to remote locations. And no matter what, WA still has the most sun in the world. We have more than 8 hours. So ignore today's rainy day. We definitely have the climate that people want as well. So Garth, I'm going to do some examples. Now, these were all by Property Powerhouse, so they're perfect examples. The photo on the top was Beckenham. There was 3 villas there, 12 Ks from the CBD. I grew up very close to this area. So purchase prices range from 527 to 552 because it was middle, front and back. So they were all a little bit different. Rental price when they settled was an asking price of 560 to 610. They rented all the way from 560, 610 and 650. So I also know that this was probably in 2023, and those properties now at least have about an extra $50,000 in equity from their purchase price, and that's a minimum. Next one, so South Guildford, again, really nice entry point out to the Swan Valley. Again, 13.8 kilometres from the CBD. So for any of you that live in any of the major capital cities, that's still very close. 639,000 purchase price, advertised at 670 and rented at 750 per week. I don't think we're as super fast as Punit's actual property manager, but these all rented within a week as well. So very low downtime between advertising, home opens and tenants going in. And that owner too now has more than $70,000 equity. So when you revalue that property, it is now over 700,000. Okay, Garth, next one. This one actually only just settled a few months ago. So purchased in January 2024. Now this is the big one. It's 21.5 Ks from the CBD. Again, for any of you Sydney, Melbourne people, you're thinking that's nothing, but in Perth, it's like, oh, really? So purchased at 620,000 purchase price. So that was in January. And by the time they settled in March, the value of that valuation when they settled was $45,000 more. That's just from purchase price until settlement. The rent went for $685 per week. I think we advertised for less than that, but got $685. It's a 5.75% return. But the one thing that I wanted to make sure that you understood about this property is 21.5 Ks is okay because it's a family home. So this property is a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and we are, don't get me wrong, we have no 3x2s either. We have no 2x2s and we have no 1x1s, but the 4 bedrooms are the scarcest property. We have families, we have those sort of people coming into this market, and we just don't have 4-bedroom properties. Now, the reason I put a map of this property down the bottom as well, red is the pin, is if Garth went down a little bit lower and he went down to Scott Reserve. Oops, sorry, Garth. So if he goes down there, that whole area, even though it is not in green, is massive ovals. We're talking football ovals, cricket pitches, everything. To the right is a primary school. To the left is another massive park. And the end of this street is one of the most popular ones, which is Rangeview Park. So this property, even though it's 21.5 k's from the CBD, the reason why Garth's team pulled this one out is because it is family perfect. It is close to the airport. It has parks. It is 4-bedroom, and it will always lease extremely well. So thank you, Garth. I think that's it. Oh, look at me go. Okay, we've got probably, I'll leave it to you, Garth, for questions.
Fantastic, Jamie. Always good energy, good information. Thank you for highlighting those investment property sourced by Property Pass. So, guys, we just got mindful of the time. I just wanted to open up for any questions. Great. We've been Mo Honant. A good day, Garth. You mentioned you don't get paid by the buyer, so may I ask how you make your money? Fantastic question. Thank you for your question. We get paid by the vendor. So if the property gets through to settlement, we get paid a referral fee, marketing fee from the vendor. And the good news for you and anybody buying, in the 7 years Property Powerhouse has been in business, not one of our clients has ever had to settle on a property below bank valuation. What does that mean? It means the bank go out and value the property because they're lending. Not one of our clients has ever had an issue with bank valuation, which means we go and negotiate really hard out of the market. If we believe, and we do our research to make sure that the property is at fair market value, and if it's not, we have to negotiate with the vendor. We tell them to reduce the price before we present it to the client. If he wants too much or she wants too much, we let the property go. Why they want to work with us is that we have finance approved quality property investors looking to buy, people who are not going to waste their time, people who've got pre-approvals, they've got their finance in place, and they are genuine buyers. And they know that when we deal with them, they're going to get a smooth process. We won't make things difficult for the vendor, and we're making sure we've got an excellent experience and journey for the buyer. So it's a win-win. All parties win. The vendor is happy. They can, everybody wins. The buyer gets the property, a good investment property at fair market value. The vendor can still, they can make a profit, and they can stay in business if they're a builder, a developer, or a vendor, and we get paid a marketing fee. So it's very much looking after the client first and foremost, the buyer, but everybody wins, and that's a whole sort of ethos that we have at Property Pass. The property manager, Jamie, wins. The building inspector, the tenant, everybody, it just creates good karma that way. So I hope I answered that okay, Mo Honant. I don't know if there's any other questions, guys, for our panel. So maybe Jamie and Patrick and Pula, just unmute yourselves and get your videos on. Just any questions for anybody?
There are two questions for me, Garth. One from Carolyn. Is interest for land loan able to be claimed against tax? Whilst a land component is an asset, it's not yet an income producing asset. A few years ago, so I think some 4 years ago, the ATO was allowing you to claim the interest on the loan as long as you could prove that that land was going to be for building a property, an investment property. But 4 years from that, they have actually canned that that component. So you cannot claim the interest on the land loan until obviously you have built and the property is rented. So you can't go back and claim that interest that you've missed out on. But what you can do is carry forward that interest for future capital gains tax offsets. So when you sell the property further down the track, that interest that you haven't been able to claim can form part of your buying, your cost base, which is what we call your buying cost. So hopefully I've answered that question for you. Not the answer you were looking for, I'm sure, but that's the position of the tax office on this one. I have another question from Mohanat. It says, Patrick, when I buy a property under a discretionary trust with a 80% loan secured by the investment property and a 20% residual deposit comes from an equity loan from my private property, the extra 20% loan secured against my private property, can it be on lent to the trust via loan agreement? And I understand that it won't help my personal tax position, but it will help accumulate losses in the trust. Am I correct in assuming this? 100% correct. You can borrow the money off your private residence, and because the purpose is for investment purposes, the deduction of that loan will not be in your name. But as long as you have a proper commercial loan agreement between yourself and the trust, that will allow you to on-lend the money to the trust. The trust has the funds and basically pays, the loan and buys the property. Part of the rent of the trust should come back to you because the loan is still in your name with the bank, and you've got to dispose of that interest or pay the interest. So in your personal tax return, you will receive an income from the trust, but you will also offset the expense. So it's neutral in your name, but it will have a deduction in the trust. Hopefully I've explained that.
Wonderful, Patrick. Thank you. And just I'm mindful of time, but the wonderful thing I hope that you take away from tonight is that you need an expert to do this right. Investment properties are not cheap. You're spending 500, 600, 700. You need to get it right. And even though you feel you know all the right things, it's what you don't know what you don't know. Right. I've been doing in this industry for 20 years now. We're very experienced. Patrick, we will introduce you to these experts. Jamie, for the property management. She's an expert, 20 years. Patrick, an expert who's been doing it for 20 years. So what we want to do is give you that experience like Punit had, where it was nice and easy and smooth. Then he thinks, oh, well, that's how you buy every property. Doing it on your own, some people can get it right. 95% of investors buy one property and stop there. And the reason is that they bought either the wrong property, they bought at the wrong price, wrong location, wrong rent, wrong cash flow. 5% can be lucky and do it on their own, but I don't like those chances. So if we work at no cost to you, have a chat to us. And we'll do send out a recording tonight. And really appreciate my guest speakers. I'd like to just say again, Patrick, wonderful. Mohanad has come back, brilliant explanation. If you guys need to talk one-on-one, we'll be sharing the addresses and email addresses and contact details for Patrick and for Jamie. Jamie, as always, you guys are doing a wonderful job. I know your property managers have a tough time in this market. Investors want to put rents up. Tenants can hardly afford to pay anymore. So we really appreciate that important role you have in the middle of trying to get a win-win situation between an investor and a tenant. So thank you. Punit, thanks again for your lovely comments on property. And we've got, if you go to I'll share the Google reviews, one of many, many happy stories. And it's something that we're very proud about, caring about the people, that the clients that we're helping, but caring about the people in this that we're going to put around you. So it's all about relationships. I hope you've enjoyed tonight. I hope you found something of interest, and we look forward to our next webinar with you. And all the best with your journey as an investor. Anything we can help, please reach out to us at Property Pass. Thank you very much, and good evening.